This is North Pod, a North Melbourne fan podcast, hosted by Jason Hunt.
Larkey! Stevenson with his own move. Carrington. North are in front!
Hello. Welcome back to North Pod. And I can tell you right now it's going to be a tough episode to record. It was a tough game to watch. It's a tough time to be a North Melbourne fan. I'm feeling a little under the weather. My voice is a bit dodgy. And I've had 24 hours or so to take in the game, and it still just has that feeling of emptiness. I think anyone who watched that game would know what I'm talking about. It's a tough time. And I think I saw a few people on social media make a comment around this is our rock bottom, and maybe it is. I do want to say that you probably never know your rock bottom until you're on the way up again, and we're not there yet, so hold fast, everyone. We might not be there yet. Yeah, what a game. Welcome back to North Pod. I don't even know if I said that earlier on, but welcome. It's going to be a different episode this week. I have prepared some of my usual notes, but I just think it was going to be really hard for me to draw some positives and negatives out of that game, and I'm going to take a different approach. Hopefully you love it, and if you don't, I'm sorry, but I just think if I'm going to struggle to talk like I normally would for 45 minutes or so about the game in the style that I normally do, I think you'll probably struggle to listen to it. So we're going to have a look at every player from North Melbourne. We're going to just chat about the game in general, and we'll still do the North Podium votes. I've still got a bit of a story of the game, and we'll look ahead to next week. But I just think rather than the positives and negatives, we're gonna whip through. Just my thoughts on everyone that played, because I think getting a sense for where our list is at and how our list is performing, I don't know, it might help understand where we're at, might help understand or sort of express how some of us are feeling, because I don't want to get to that angry place. It's not really a natural place for me. I certainly am feeling dejected and feeling a little bit helpless, but I think just taking a bit of an analytical approach to what the players brought at Saturday's game might be helpful. Let's stay tuned if a bit of a different listening experience is something that you might be interested in. Team selection, we had Will Phillips and Cameron Xerri come in. Will Phil for his first game, which I was really pleased about. I think we really need to get a look at him in the middle, and Xerri was returning from his minor complaint. Greenwood was dropped, and I think he's going to be in and out this year. He certainly didn't have a good game against Geelong, but he wasn't too bad the week prior. So, yeah, I think he'll be in and out depending on who else is available. And Georgie Wardlaw was rested or managed, and I think it's appropriate to manage him throughout the year. I do wonder if this was the game to do so, given what we were going in thinking we were a chance, but I mean, we weren't, as it turned out, so it hasn't really mattered. And in order to get Phillips in, we really had to take Wardlaw out. So, hopefully it's just a week off for Wardlaw and we can see what the lineup looks like for next week. But they were the outs, and then Charlie Lazaro was made the sub for the second week in a row, which, look, I don't love making the same player the sub, but he probably, was the most appropriate player to be the sub. So, look, what are you going to do? I think there's no winning solution there. It is what it is. In terms of the match result, if you didn't see it, and I wouldn't watch the replay if you didn't, it was North Melbourne 68 defeated by the Hawks 113. A 45-point loss, and story of the game is we were beaten in every major statistic in the game. We fumbled it like you wouldn't believe. We couldn't hit a target forward of the centre, sorry. We couldn't defend in transition. Name it, we did it poorly. I'm just going to whip through a couple of things. We trailed them for disposals. They had about 60 odd or 55 more disposals. They had 11 more inside 50s. Their disposal efficiency was about 3% higher. Their inside 50 efficiency was about 15% higher. They won the free kick count. We won the clearances by 2 and the hitouts by 19, so a little bit better there. They won the contested possessions, the uncontested possessions. We had more turnovers, so we won that stat. Don't you worry about that. They had more intercepts. They spent more of the match in possession of the ball. They won the marking. They won the marks inside 50, 19 to 11. Had more contested marks. Spent more time in front. They had more tackles. They had more tackles inside 50. They had more 1%ers. They even had more interchanges than us. We did take more running bounces, but that was all pretty much in one sequence. So, look, obviously that is very big picture. There's not a lot of it. Well, there's no analysis there. I've just told you some numbers, but I think hopefully that gives you a sense for, aside from the hit-outs, and as a result of that, sort of the clearances, we lost every statistic that you measure success by in a football game. And some of those are more important than others, but it just gives you a real sense for the fact that we were beaten. There's just no way to cut up that game and say, well, at least this part of the game was good. There was obviously a couple of little bright moments, but beyond that, we were just thoroughly beaten by a side that, is at a comparable place in terms of their rebuild and in terms of their position in the ladder to where we are. They do have a bit more experience than us. I think their average games played is about 20 games more, and generally speaking, that can be attributed to a couple of really experienced players. They only really had Jack Gunston as a super experienced player, as far as I recall. Yeah, they've got a couple of more senior players, like obviously Sicily and Jarman Impey, Carl Amon, Sam Frost. So there's a couple there that have, or even Blake Hardwick, that have played, more than 50 or 60 games, but generally speaking, they're probably slightly more advanced, at least in terms of experience at AFL football level. But we would like to be competing with a side like this, and we weren't close to competing with them, to be perfectly honest. We got out to a bright start, kicked the first 2 goals, and after that point, the Hawks kicked 9 in a row, I think it was. It was definitely at least 9. And just put the game to bed. At that point, they're 40 points up, and from that point, the scoreline did fluctuate a little bit, but by and large, they stayed about 40 points ahead, and we weren't able to get back into the game at all. We weren't able to have any periods where we dominated and made it count, and the game was played exactly the way that Hawthorn wanted the game to be played. So from that perspective, it was just one of the more disappointing performances I've seen from this footy club in the last couple of years, which really hurts to say, because I do like to try and, stay pretty level-headed. I wouldn't say I'm a positive person. It's pretty hard to be a positive North Melbourne supporter. But I would like to think that I stay pretty level-headed and don't ride the complete ups and the complete downs. But I certainly felt as though I was riding a pretty low down during this game. In terms of the 5 stars for the North Podium, it's going to be some familiar names. Similar to last week, I found it hard to identify players who were absolutely fantastic, but I've got 4 here that I thought, were a net positive, did some really good things, and showed some good signs. So 4 votes I've given to Tristan Xerri. I am trying to make sure that I pronounce his name correctly with the sound. So Tristan Xerri. He had 18 disposals, 2 marks, 10 tackles, which was the most on the ground, 10 clearances, which was the most on the ground, 6 inside 50s, 44 hit-outs, 21 pressure acts, and also a goal assist. The only negative part of his game was he had 4 free kicks against, so he was a little undisciplined at times. Most of those were either because he tackled a player that had already disposed of it, or because he got caught trying to do a bit too much out of the ruck and got caught holding the ball. So, good intentions. There was nothing where he's giving away silly free kicks, more like clumsy ruck free kicks. But aside from that, he was just an absolute force around the ground, dominated the ruck contests. As I said, we did slightly win the clearance battle, and that was mostly due to his work. That being said, I do think both ruckmen across the day were probably hitting it to the opposition more than they were hitting it to their team. But as I said, he had 10 clearances himself, the 10 tackles. As per usual, not a massive marking game, only the 2 marks. He did have one other that would have been, I think, a contested mark that got taken off him because someone else was shepherding a Hawthorn player out of the contest. But we know that's not a strength of his. We'd love it to be. It's just not. His strength is being an absolute bully and being a real physical presence. And I thought he did that. He was great with his kicking and his handballing. Like, he didn't butcher the footy when he did get it. Sure, some of those clearance were hat kicks out, but that's no different to any of our mids. So Tristan Xerri had another fantastic game. I think that's his 3rd match for the year where I've thought he was probably our best player on the ground. Which there'd be a lot of fans that if I'd said that before the season started would have absolutely, well, they wouldn't have believed me. That's the honest truth. So a fantastic start to the year from Tristan Xerri. Then the next 3, I really found it hard to put them in an order, but I've gone with Paul Curtis for the 3 votes. He had 3 goals, 15 disposals, 6 marks, 1 of those contested, 2 tackles, and a goal assist. And I thought he was probably our best forward. It was tough to split him and Larkey, but I thought Curtis probably looked a bit more dangerous across the whole game. Got himself involved a little bit more and put on some fantastic pressure when the ball was in his area. Would have loved him to be slightly more accurate. Could have turned it into a bag of 4, but look, 3 goals, 2, and as I said, 6 marks and 1 contested. So was playing that sort of medium contested game that we know he's been able to play so well. It's been fantastic to see him be able to consistently kick goals this year. We know that last year he would really drift in and out, and there were patches where he just wasn't doing enough, particularly when he didn't have the ball. But yeah, he's proving to be really dangerous. Still makes mistakes like everyone. Similar to Xerri, really, to be honest. It's generally trying to do too much and give off a fend off when he just needs to either hold it in more subtly or just give a quick handball off. But his intent is to do the right thing, and I think we're not in a position to criticise intent like that. So a fantastic 3-goal performance given the service and the opportunities were pretty lacking for him. 2 votes, Harry Sheezel, stock standard, don't need to say much more. He had 26 disposals, 7 marks, 4 tackles, 1 goal assist, 19 pressure acts, 5 rebound 50s. Just did a bit of everything. As per usual, one of our better kicks going forward, and just those little things that he does that stand out. And I think part of the reason that he stands out so much is that the rest of the team is so incapable of creating moments like he can. There was a moment where he had a quick receive sort of 55 to 60 metres out and off one step just kicked a really small dart. I don't recall who marked it, but they goaled from that. It might have been Paul Curtis. He just has that, capacity to hit a really short kick or find a player in space. His handballs always allow those players to just not miss a step. He's one of the only players in our side that I think is able to hit a player where they don't break step, and it allows them to actually take clean possession. Whereas a lot of our players, those passes, whether they be handballs or kicks, are just 10 or 15% off, and that allows opposition players to intercept or to put pressure on so that we fumble it. So that's one part of the many parts that Shees brings to this side, and just another game where he's in our best 4. So he's still yet to be not in our best 4, and you'd have to think he's leading our best and fairest. And the 1 vote was Nick Larkey, also kicked 3 goals. He had 3 goals, 1 from 11 disposals, 6 marks, 2 of those contested, 3 hit-outs, and 5 inside 50s. So he did the relief rucking when Xerri was off the ground, which was not very much of the game, to be honest. And similar to Curtis, he made the most of his opportunities. A couple of really, really good goals. One in particular where he got out the back and just swung around on his right foot and kicked it from 50-odd metres. As I said, could have split it. Really, Curtis, Sheezel and Larkey, I would have been happy to put in any order if someone wanted to challenge me on it. In his 100th game, so it was great that he was able to hit the scoreboard. He did have a pretty quiet start, but as I said, made the most of the opportunities that I thought came to him because they were pretty few and far between. And that is the beauty of having someone like Larkey who is so accurate and makes the most of the chances that he got. So, yeah, a really solid performance from Larkey in his 100th. By no means one of his best games, but really rose to the occasion when the ball was in his area. He still is getting edged under a couple too many contests, but I think a big part of that is the ball's not being kicked to him out in front. He's being forced to slow down, and that's why it makes it really easy for the defenders just to nudge him under with their body. Completely legally, I don't think those ones are illegal. I think there are times where he's in a pack situation and he's kind of getting held down, but in the same breath, that happens to most forwards. So I don't think he's being unfairly treated by the umpires. I just think he needs to adapt to that. And our midfielders and players that are kicking inside 50 need to kick it further out in front of him, because if he has to slow down, it gives the opposition defender enough time to get there. So there's the 4-3-2-1. Xerri 4, Curtis 3, Sheezel 2, Nick Larkey 1 vote. McKercher was pretty unlucky. He had an absolutely fantastic moment in the second quarter. Must have taken about 6 bounces through the middle of the ground. Hit Paul Curtis on the chest, who then went on to kick it behind, unfortunately. But that was probably the highlight of the game. Certainly the flashiest moment of the game. And it just had that real, McKercher took the game on. He said, I'm sick of this. I'm just going to get on with it. I'm going to take the ball the length of the field and do what my teammates can't. So really gave us a flash of his brilliance in game number 6. A shame that, a player that's 18 or 19 has to do that, but that's where we're at. And I certainly, I was close to giving him 1 vote just for that, to be honest. It was a fantastic moment, and I did want to highlight that. In terms of the opposition best, look, who cares? Connor Nash was fantastic. Dylan Moore was fantastic. Jai Newcomb was fantastic. So probably their 2 best midfielders, and Dylan Moore kicked 4 goals and just seemed to bob up in the forward line every time that they went forward. Nash and Newcomb killed us out of the middle. Yeah, there was probably 5 or 6 Hawthorn players that would be in the votes ahead of any of us, except for maybe Xerri. So look, you can take your pick from them. It was nice to not have a opposition key forward absolutely belt us this week. But that being said, the Hawks kicked 17 goals, so it certainly wasn't as though we held them. Mabior Chol kicked a couple. Lloyd Meek, their ruckman, went forward and kicked a couple. So we were certainly still challenged. Gunston kicked only 1, but I think it was 1 goal 3. So, their forwards certainly did some damage regardless, and we'll talk about what that defensive structure looked like in a minute. So just to update you, it's not going to come as any surprise. Harry Sheezel is sitting on top of the North Podium. He's on 16 votes. Tristan Xerri, 12. Tommy Powell, 10, rounds out the top of the podium. And then Paul Curtis and LDU are 6 and 5 in 4th and 5th position. So that's what the top 5 looks like. At this stage, it's looking like Sheezel, Xerri, and maybe Tommy Powell are the only ones that are going to be best on ground for us at any point. So make of that what you will, I suppose. This is the point of the podcast where I'll give myself a quick plug. Please do, in this time of absolute horror and wasteland, please do share the podcast out with any North Melbourne fans you know. We've got to stick together, so help me get the word out there. Subscribe on your chosen podcast service. Leave me a review if you can, and I'll give it a read out. And get involved with me on social media. I'm at North Pod Show in most places: Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, or X, all of those places. And if you would like to support the show on Buy Me a Coffee, you can find a link in the show notes. It's just a way to buy me a Coke, because I'm not a coffee drinker, and help keep the lights on of this podcast. Absolutely no obligation, but I do appreciate those people that show their support for the show. So, this is where I would normally go into positives and negatives. As I said, I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction this week, and I'm just going to have a look at each player. So I'm probably not going to spend any more time on those players that I've already talked about. And some players will get more time than others. I certainly still am hoping that this is a podcast of a similar length to normal, because I don't think anyone wants to listen to more North Melbourne content this week. There's just not, there's nothing positive to contribute in that space. So I've talked about Xerri, I've talked about Sheezel, Paul Curtis I've talked about. Tommy Powell had a solid game, had 20 touches, and yeah, probably a step or two down from where he's been in previous weeks. I don't think that he was embarrassed, but I think it's that he's probably symbolic of the problems in the midfield where defensively he wasn't doing enough to put a stop to the likes of Newcomb and Connor Nash, and he wasn't doing enough offensively to offset that, if that makes sense. So he's not Gary Ablett or Patrick Dangerfield on offense at this stage, so he can't afford to just leave his man and not defend. And I think he's trying. He's certainly not one that I'm super upset with from the game. I thought as I said, he was solid, but probably symbolic of our mids in this game in that they were just so. Probably leaning towards negative, to be honest, except for Xerri. But, I'll talk about LDU in a minute. I thought Powell and LDU were both solid. Bailey Scott, I really don't know what's happening with him and what to expect from him at the moment. I really hoped and I thought that playing him off halfback was, a bit of an experiment that had run its course, but he still is playing in that back line and making some poor choices. His kicking under pressure is not good. He's definitely a run and carry and kick at 50 metres kind of player, which is interesting because I think Luke McDonald is kind of the same. But yeah, some of his kicking coming out of the back 50 is not great, and it's not. I think this is where disposal efficiency, as it's measured by the AFL, we have to put into context. Generally, teams will sit between 70 and 80% disposal efficiency, and sometimes you'll see a player that has a really high disposal efficiency, but they've had several turnovers. And part of that can be the way that those things are measured. A player can kick the ball to a contest and have it marked by an opposition player. Because it was a contest, they would say that was an effective disposal as opposed to ineffective, and also give it a turnover because obviously a turnover. So sometimes the disposal efficiency statistic can be a little misleading. And there's a lot of context around that. I'm not going to go into the nuances of it. I don't understand them perfectly. I say all of that to say, often our disposal efficiency is not that much less than our opposition. However, there are so many times where our kicks, like I've mentioned earlier, are not enough to our advantage and they invite pressure and they allow the opposition to close distance and to spoil or to intercept effectively or aren't even marked because it's too far out in front and our player can't get to it. Whereas you'll see most teams are able to exit back 50, get to, say, the wing, and then the space, the available space then starts to be limited and they're having to choose between going to a contest or to bite off some tricky 25 to 30 metre kicks. We aren't getting to that point. We can't get the ball to the wing in our possession at this point. And Bailey Scott is one of many players that I think contributes to that because we're not able to hit targets between 30 metres out from our defensive goal and the wing. It's kick it to a pack and hope, or kick it to a target, miss the target, and then hope to win the 50-50 or the contest when the ball hits the ground, which typically we're not. And that's why it ends up going back into our defensive 50 and the cycle repeats. So Bailey Scott, he's trying his best. I think personally he's being played out of position. I'm not coach, so make of that what you will. He may go on in the years to come to be a fantastic defender for us, but I just am not loving his usage in that position. I would much prefer to see him playing on the wing where he has finished third in the best and fairest for the last 2 years, where his disposal doesn't need to be quite as precise, but he's able to run all day long, and he's able to kick that ball long down the line where appropriate, because he's just not able to get his game going at the moment the way that he once was. LDU, similar boat to Tommy Powell. 23 disposals, 4 tackles. I think it was 6 clearances. Yeah, 6 clearances, 5 inside 50s. He was fine. And I think that's my problem with LDU at the moment. He's 24. He's coming into the best years of his football career, allegedly. And I think what we're seeing is this version of LDU in this team is not good enough to drag us up a rung, so to speak. LDU was phenomenal last year, particularly for the first half of the year. He was our best player, probably alongside Sheezel for the first half of the year. Injuries slowed him down, and he has not looked the same player since. There's a lot of reasons for that, I think. But one of the big reasons is I think LDU, like a lot of our okay players, will be a better player in a better team. Right now, he needs to do too much offensively for us. And because of how bad we are, he also needs to be pretty defensive. And that's not a strength of his, and it's not something that we want to be asking him to be doing. So similar to Tommy Powell, I thought he was fine. I would still love it if his clearances weren't hat kicks around the corner out of a contest, particularly centre clearances. I'd love us to win a centre clearance and use our hands to actually get someone running forwards and able to kick it to a half of a spot where a forward might be leading. Every one of his clearances seemed to be him either getting the ball sort of at the back of the stoppage and then taking 3 steps and snapping it over his shoulder for a 40-metre really high kick, or he's one-stepping it and just booting it. And a lot of that's because of the pressure that's being put on him as our number one midfielder. But as I say, let's use the hands. Get the handball backwards to someone who's on the way past or someone who's in a bit of space so that we can actually think about the clearance rather than this hat kick that invariably goes the other direction. So, yeah, he was fine, but like I said, not a good player on the day. We're going to start getting into some players that really didn't perform now. I've talked about Nick Larkey. Aiden Core was a bit anonymous, I would say. I don't think it was a poor game by him, but I have a lot to say about him from this game. We know he had a really interrupted preseason and has come back in and not been fantastic. He played a good half a game or so on Charlie Cameron, really shut him out of the game against Brisbane. He's being asked to play a variety of roles this year. He's been playing a lot of smalls and mediums, which I don't mind if that's how we're going to utilise him. He is quick. In this game, he was asked once Charlie Coleman went forward, which I'll talk about soon. He was asked to play sort of that second tall role with him and Biggie Newen sharing those responsibilities, which was fine for playing this version of Hawthorn. They didn't have Mitch Lewis there, so we had to contend with Mabior Chol as their main key forward. So that worked, but it doesn't work if we're playing Geelong or if we're playing Brisbane or if we're playing Carlton, like most of the teams that we've played to this point. If we're playing GWS, I don't think it would work. So yeah, I just wonder what we're doing with Aiden Core at this point. I wonder if there's a point where he comes out despite being in the leadership group because he's in that age bracket where, sure, he's experienced and he's an older body, but to what extent is he, doing it for us? And I suppose there's probably some comparison. I don't want to get people upset. He's not as good a player as Jack Zeeble was, but there are elements of Jack Zeeble from the last couple of years where people have wondered whether or not Jack Zeeble is keeping his place in the side because he is a leader. And I think there's an element of that with Aiden Core as well. So a pretty anonymous game from him. Darcy Tucker probably had one of his better games for the year, and that was only 17 disposals and kicked a goal. Wasn't a good game, but I thought that it was probably one of his better performances for the year. So I suppose that speaks to where I'm seeing him. He was one of those alongside Charlie Lazaro and alongside Callan Dawson, who's actually been okay, in fairness to him. But Darcy Tucker was one of those that was touted as going to be having a breakout season of sorts or a career best season of sorts. And that just hasn't translated from the preseason. He's looked somewhere between awful and average in every game. He hasn't had a good game, I don't think. He's been average at best. And he is the perfect example of the reason that we're at where we're at. because a player in his age bracket, he is 27, should be one of our best players. Now, we didn't recruit him to be that. That's unfair on him. It's not his fault. But a player that's 27 and playing some midfield time, some forward time, some wing time should be one of our better players. And he's just not. He's probably... Well, for me, I don't know if I'd be picking him every week, or I wouldn't like to be. And I have to think that he'd be maybe the 19th or the 20th player picked. I have to think that, because I just can't see how the type of player that he is and the skills that he brings, how that's going to be helpful for us in this rebuild. So, yeah, a solid performance from him, but certainly nothing that's going to keep him in the side in my eyes. McKercher, I kind of mentioned, he had a relatively quiet game, but that fantastic moment, as I said, he had 17 disposals, and, he's playing his 6th game. I'm not going to sit here and criticise him. He's learning the game off half-back in probably the worst side of history. There's a lot of pressure on him. He actually did spend a fair bit of time forward as well in this game, which was a different look for him. No midfield time. It was backline and forward line, so he was filling 2 different positions there, getting some experience in different positions, which I think will be positive for him. Jai Simpkin is an interesting one to talk about. He did play more midfield minutes in this game than he has previously. Kicked a goal, had 17 disposals, and I really don't know what to say about Jai Simpkin at the moment, because I really respected his best and fairest years. I thought he played some sensational footy throughout the COVID times, one of the shining lights, and he just, for whatever reason, is not able to impact the game like he was in those years. Obviously, he's our captain. He's 26 years old. Similar to Darcy Tucker, he absolutely should be one of our best players, and he hasn't been the votes this year yet for me. And whilst this was a better game by him because of the slight role change, he was playing much more midfield time. I think it was 17 centre bounce attendances, 18, and he had 3 clearances. Only one of them out of the centre though, so from the 18 times he was in the middle, he had 1 clearance. He did have 2 other stoppages around the ground. He had 5 tackles. He had 4 inside 50s. He's doing a bit. It's just whether or not, as allegedly one of our better players again, is he doing enough? And I think the obvious answer is no. Personally, I'd like to persist playing with him more midfield minutes, because we need his big body in there. We need a player of his skill set in there. I don't want him in there as our number 1 centre bounce player, and that's not going to happen. We know that he's going to spend a fair bit of time on that half forward line, but maybe we do try and get him out more to the wing and more into the middles so that he's able to get back to that form that he's been able to have in the past, because it's just not working for the team right now. And I think that's the thing that we have to remember. Sometimes players can be playing in positions that's not the best position for them personally, but it's helping the team. And I don't feel like Jai Simpkin playing forward is working for the team such that he should be staying there. It's just not. It's not. Look at the scoreboard. We've lost 6 games convincingly. The role that he's been playing in this predominantly high half forward role hasn't been successful for him or the team. So let's try something else. Let's get him more midfield minutes where he's had the most success, and try and fill the gaps around him. That's what I would like anyway. Again, I'm not the coach, but that's what I would like. Dylan Stephens had 18 disposals and was anonymous. He's been a real disappointment for me. Again, it's not his fault. He was brought in with some pretty high expectations. We need a player in his age bracket on the wing. He's 23, should be coming into the best footy of his life, but I think we're discovering why players went past him at Sydney. I haven't lost hope on him. I don't want to be a super negative Nancy. I think he could still be a player for us, but right now I'm just not seeing a player that's going to be there when we're making a finals or a premiership tilt. And to be fair, I could probably say that about a lot of our players at the moment. So it's not specific to him, but I need to see more from him. Zach Fisher, I am ready to see forward. I don't think we can have Sheezel and McKercher and Fisher and Luke McDonald in that back line. I know that McDonald plays a very different role to those 3 that I just named. However, functionally, they're a same same archetype in a lot of ways. So I think it's time that we try Fisher elsewhere. He is such a liability defensively, which I know sounds crazy because he's playing defense, but I think you all know what I mean. If he's in a one-on-one contest with anyone, he's losing it. It's just he does not have the strength to win a one-on-one battle, and his defensive fundamentals are not there. And I don't think he's being asked to be defensive by Clarko. I'm sure that he has a fair bit of license to do what he wants with it. He's made some mistakes coming out of defence on Sunday. We all do, because there aren't a lot of options there for him to kick to. But I just think we haven't quite got the balance right there. We need to do a bit of damage control with him. Let's try him up forward. We need that forward, although Blake Xerri is doing a solid job of that small pressure goal kicking forward. I think let's experiment. I think Fisher probably could, to be honest, be doing what McKercher was doing on the weekend. Let's flip him between both. But we need to know that if he's playing in defence, whoever he's playing on, and generally it's a zone, it's not one player, but whoever he's playing on, we have to be mindful of. Fisher is not going to be able to stop them. So we couldn't have him playing on Ginnivan, for example. It's not going to work. Ginnivan's going to tear him apart. Yeah, he's a worry for me. Will Phillips came in and was okay. I thought he took a little bit to ease into the game. He had 14 touches. We know that handballing is a strength of his in and under, and eventually he did end up with a couple of clearances, I think 4 by the end of the game, but he took a while to get going. My concern with him is that he can't play any role other than midfield, or at least we haven't seen him play any role other than out-and-out midfielder. And so it does make it hard to get him, 80% game time, because we can't rest him forward. We can't rest him in the back line. And it means that if he's in there, someone else that's been playing well is out. I think we have to keep playing him this year. We have to see exactly what we've got. I know there's talk that he might be looking elsewhere, or, he mightn't be on the list at the end of the year. And let's not be worried about that. Let's play him 15, 16 games this year and be absolutely sure that he's not going to do it for us, or that he is. Because right now I'm not sure. I said at the start of the year that it's going to be a bit of a make or break year for him, and I got a little bit of feedback about that he's only young, and I totally get that. But when you come in as a really high draft pick and not a key position player, you do need to be having an impact faster, or a better impact than he's been able to have. And I love Will Phil. So I really hope that he can turn this game into a couple more. But, I mean, if Wardlaw's going to come back from being managed next week, I don't know how Will Phil stays in the side based on how we're currently set up. Anyway, well, I guess we'll see what happens. I hope he stays in, but I'm not sure that he will. He was okay. Biggie Nguyen is one that I definitely want to talk about. He had an absolute mare. And it was AFL Game 3 for him. So similar to a lot of these other younger players, I'm not going to directly have a go at him. But by golly, he needs to get an absolute kick up the backside in terms of urgency and want and desire. He looked lethargic. At times, he looked super slow for someone who's supposed to be really athletic. I'm not sure if he got an injury. At one point, he was limping at one point, but then he seemed to come good. I'm not sure, but I know that there were times where he trailed his defender and just did not look like he had any interest in chasing them. It was awful. I thought last week he really showed some somewhat positive signs, but his 11 disposals was one of the worst games I've seen a North Melbourne player play in terms of the intent. He just had absolutely no want to compete. My partner who was watching the game noticed it, and if she's noticing it, as someone who's, not a football lover and someone that only watches the games because I'm watching, let's be honest, if she's noticing it, it's a problem. So I'd be getting Toby Pink back in, or if Callum Dawson's fit, he's coming straight back in, because that was a really poor performance from Biggie Nguyen. I'd like to see him spend some time in the VFL developing his desire. Blake Xerri was quiet. He kicked a goal, but, there wasn't a lot of opportunities up forward. The one goal that he did kick was a great crumbing goal, which is exactly what we want to see those small forwards be able to do. So, after 2 goals last week, I think he'll hold his place in that forward line. Cam Zerha is an interesting one, and I think I'm going to talk about Zerha and Common together here for different reasons. I thought they both started really quite well. Zerha was quite positive, had a couple of good contests, did miss a couple of shots at goal, but I thought his start to the game was fantastic. And Charlie Common was the same. He had a couple of fantastic intercept marks to start the game. I thought early on, I was like, great, Chom's on. He looks like he's going to really shut down Mabior Chol and also give us a bit offensively, which is absolutely what we want to see from those tall defenders. And then they both just disappeared from the game. Barely sighted after quarter time. Charlie Comben swapped to the forward line in the second half, so that's part of the reason why he kind of disappeared. And there was one contest that he created which allowed Larkey to get out the back and score a goal. So I think it's really hard for a player of Charlie's experience to get swapped to the opposite end of the ground mid-game when he's been training to be a defender for the past 12 months. So look, no slight on him, but he, as I said, after a really solid start, drifted out, and I think that's going to be, part and parcel of him learning the game. It was interesting that Clarko did decide to swap him. I think there was an element of trying to exploit the Hawthorn defence in terms of our height. It certainly didn't work, but I think possibly that was part of the idea because the Hawthorn forward line was so small. So Common, some positive signs, but he's going to drift in and out at the moment. He's going to try his best, but he's going to make mistakes. Cam Zerha, I thought, was trying, but then almost went into that mode where he's trying a bit too hard, and he's directing that effort into the wrong kinds of things. You could see that he was quite frustrated. So it certainly doesn't help the talk about him potentially leaving as a free agent. I think when he plays games like this, it's going to stir up conversation in the media and amongst other fans, and it's probably not super helpful. So just one to watch there with Cam, I think. Yeah, he was an interesting watch because he had such a positive start and then ended up with 2 points from 11 touches and virtually zero impact. I overheard one of the Hawthorn fans saying that he was so overrated, and I could absolutely see that. He's had a really poor start to the year, unfortunately, which is not what you want to have happen when you're coming into your free agency year. Just a couple more players here to whip through. Look, Charlie Lazaro came on as a sub and had 11 disposals and came on in the third quarter. He was solid. Didn't really do anything wrong, but didn't make me sit there and go, geez, where's he been all game? Luke McDonald had 10 touches in defence. Pretty anonymous performance. There was a mark that he should have taken in defence. I feel like he has one of those every week where he should take an intercepting mark and just fumbles it and again invites pressure. I think that would be North Melbourne's motto at the moment, invites pressure. So yeah, just another underperforming senior player, a co-captain, someone that absolutely has the heart and the want and the desire, but fast running out of mates. And I think another one of those players that would be better on a better side, but it's not happening for him. And then Zane Dersma, another quiet performance, the 7 touches. I do think it's time. I said it last week. I wondered whether it was time to give him a bit of a break. I think it's just an impossible role for him to play at the moment in this side because of how the team is playing. So I'm not upset if we keep playing him. I just think part of me wonders if it's a bit of a waste because he has so few opportunities to impact the game. Let's get him some touches at the VFL. That's what I think at least. Certainly don't want to hide him away in the VFL all year, but there does come a point where maybe it's better for him to get the leather in his hands and get some positivity. Eddie Ford kicked a goal early and then really faded out of the game. It did say that he was subbed as an injury, I think with a bit of a corky. So I don't expect that to impact him too dramatically. He had a good game last week, so I do expect that if he's fit, he'll stay in the side, but it was a quiet game from him. And then poor Tyler Sellers, the 2 disposals, and yeah, another really quiet game from him. And look, he'll probably play again against Crows, but like I said last week, he probably doesn't have too many of these really quiet performances in him. I think it's a real shame. There was so much positivity around him getting a game, but unfortunately, it's a massive step up, and I don't think he's no chance, but the fact that he's touched it 3 times in his 2 games says a lot. I wondered if he was going to be the one that was subbed out and we were going to play Chom and Larkey as our 2 key forwards up in the second half, but obviously Ford was the one that ended up coming out. So yeah, I'd love him to actually take a mark and get a good opportunity to do something with it, but that hasn't, for a variety of reasons, hasn't happened. And I think, sure, there wasn't a lot of opportunity, but you'd love him to be, Zane Dersman touched it 7 times. Ford touched it 5 times before he was subbed out. Blake Drury touched it 9 times. None of these are good numbers, but they're better than 2. And 2 handballs from Tyler. And I think 2 free kicks against as well. Just worth noting, though, he only spent about half the time on the ground. And because I was at the game, I don't know if there was an injury concern with him or if we were just experimenting with things. I'm actually not sure. Now that I'm looking at that, it's not a lot of time on the ground. So I wonder if there was something going on there that I didn't know about because I was at the ground. But yeah, even so, he's still 2 touches. He's got to be involved more. So look, there's my summary from every player. I don't know if that's useful to you as a listener, but it was kind of interesting for me to go through that and just think about, who's a pass mark, who is contributing to this absolute demolition. And as you can see, it's most of the team. There was almost no one that I could say, yep, they're doing their job. And that's why we lost to the second worst side in the competition by 45 points, I guess. The bad news is, in the VFL, there's nothing coming through. So we lost by 10 goals in the VFL, and there was there's some okay stuff there. Braden George was okay off half-back. Miller Bergman had a return from injury, so maybe he's able to come back in the next couple of weeks. Finbar Maley took a specky and kicked 2 goals from 5 marks. Hugh Greenwood went back and kicked a goal and tackled hard, but besides that, there's certainly no one in the 2s that is banging down the door. I wonder if Finbar Maley comes in for Tyler Sellers at one point, but it could be a very similar story. Watching Finbar play in the scratch matches, he was absolutely dominated. So I just don't know if Finbar is the solution, particularly if we're not playing him as a primary ruck, which we wouldn't be. It'd be Xerri, and then Finbar would be probably doing the backup rucking in that scenario. There's no quick answers for this, I think, is probably what I'm trying to get at. We know that we're missing a couple through injury. Griffin Logue would obviously be getting a game. Callum Dawson, whilst he's not the second coming of Jesus Christ, would be getting a game in defence. And then Josh Goder is certainly getting a game as well. You can argue about whether or not CCJ is getting a game, but structurally at least, he's straightened us up a little bit at times, but at the very least. But there's no great white hope here. There's no one that is going to quickly turn the tide. And I think as North Melbourne fans, we need to strap in and we need to watch these games of footy, looking for those moments that Colby McKercher gave us in the second quarter where he just ran through 6 bounces and hit Paul Curtis on the chest. Because it's those little glimmers of hope that are going to have to be what we take away from this season. I did think and I suspected that this was going to be another low season just because of all the experience we lost last year. I thought it was always going to be a hard year, but I didn't think it was going to be this hard this soon. If I had to summarise how I'm feeling, I'm just looking up at my notes from the game. I don't think there's too much else that I haven't mentioned. There's a lot of score reviews that seem to upset people. I think we've got to get our heads around the fact that the goal umpires have been asked to review decisions that they're not sure about, so probably stop booing them because it's not their fault. Yeah, that's it. The only other note that I made that's probably worth talking about is just the fact that Hawthorn were very scrappy too. It wasn't as though they were elite, but we just were not able to... We'd turn them over and then, or at least get them fumbly, and the ball would be up for grabs in the middle of the ground. And time again, we would allow them or lack the intent and the pressure to actually steal the ball, and they'd grab it and get a few handball passes and they're back on their way like nothing happened. Whereas if that's happening to us and we're turning it over in the middle, you best believe that the Hawks were kicking it long down the line or through the middle of the ground and getting out the back of our zone and taking a mark inside 50. Sicily cut us up with 2 or 3 really scything kicks from about 40 metres out of his defensive goal. He just hit someone in the centre circle, still moving, and we just don't have a player that can do that. Maybe Sheezel, but good luck finding a player that's smart enough to work into that space, to be honest. So, yeah, just a really, really disappointing game, and I think we're all feeling the same way. I know I do try to look on the bright side, but there was so little to look there, and I just thought, look, I'm not going to give you the same podcast. Let's come at it from a different angle and see if we can uncover anything interesting or different. Next week, we're down in Tassie. It's a Saturday game, which is nice for me as a podcaster. I much prefer the Saturday and the Friday games to the Sunday. It's afternoon, 1:45 against the Crows, down in Tassie. The Crows have been up and down, so they're by no means in fantastic form, but if you've watched us play lately, I'm sure we'll play them into some good form. I really don't have it in me to preview that game, other than to say I hope that there's a couple of changes. We don't completely gut the side. I'd love to see Will Phil stay, and hopefully we're able to contain Taylor Walker with Charlie Comben down there. I'd imagine that he'd match up on Walker. Maybe Toby Pink comes in for Biggie Nguyen. I really didn't like what I saw from him in this game. And yeah, hopefully Tristan Xerri can get it down to our mids, and we can see the Wardlaw come back in and work alongside LGU and Simpkin and Phillips and Powell. I don't know if all of those mids will play. I worry that, as I said earlier, Wardlaw will come back and Phillips will be out, but something has to change in that midfield and forward line mix because it's just not working. So maybe we do need to spread the load in that midfield more and take someone like Dersma or Ford if he's injured out and just have a mid resting up there a bit more often so that we can rotate through our mids a bit more often. I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'm not the coach. Potentially when I'm feeling a bit further away from this game, we can kind of unpack tactically what I think we could try. But right now, I think that's going to do me for the podcast. My voice is fading on me again. Thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, thank you for being a North Melbourne fan, and I really hope that you're able to take some kind of glimmer of hope out of this podcast. That's really what I want to provide. I don't want this to be a bashing podcast. I want us to stick together, and I hope that we as North fans can stick together. We have every right to be upset and sad and frustrated with how things are going, but we have to stay the course and stay and support the people that are at the club that can make things better. Because at the end of the day, there's no one at the footy club that wants us to lose. It's just about getting the best people in the best positions for them and giving them time to thrive. And I know we've all been super patient and some people's patience is waning, but we're just going to have to wait a little longer, and that little longer could be a couple more years. Hope you all have a fantastic week. I hope that whatever you're doing in your life makes you happier than North Melbourne's making us on the weekend. And let's tackle the Crows next Saturday. Go North. Thanks for listening to another episode of North Pod. If you give me a rating or review on your podcast service, that would be much appreciated. And please follow me on all social media at North Pod Show. I'm on X or Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and I'm also very active on the North Melbourne subreddit. Hope you'll join me for the next episode.